My name's Steve Elms, and this is Love Local. And tonight we've got a special edition of this programme, which is kind of looking at the Ukrainian crisis and how this community, Bookham, Fetcham, Effingham and Leatherhead, are responding to that, particularly to those who are coming into our community from Ukraine. I'm joined tonight by some very special guests. This is Ro and Matt and Corrie and David, all of whom live locally here and are getting involved or have got involved in welcoming and greeting Ukrainians coming into our locality. And I'm going to be talking with them right now. So first of all, Ro, if I talk to you first of all, I think you got involved quite early on as it became possible to apply to receive refugees from Ukraine. Do you want to tell us how you got involved or what was going on for you?
Okay, so on the 14th of March, I was driving back from the north, having been away, and I didn't have a lot of strong emotion, but I just had this sense that I wanted to offer my home to a family. So I got online, because at that point you had to find your own Ukrainians, and met a family, a young man actually who was travelling with his parents, a 22-year-old psychology student, and we got chatting. We talked online for a couple of days. By the Thursday, I'd said, just come. And we filled the application in together on the Friday, and that was, I think, 5 weeks and 3 days ago, and We're still waiting for the documents so that he and his parents can travel.
Yeah, so one of the people who's been feeling a certain frustration, I guess, at what's taking much longer than you hoped it would.
Yeah, no, I've been through a very interesting process, really, because I have felt frustrated, I have felt angry, but I very quickly realised that I just needed to attend to myself and really work through what was it. And really, I just wasn't getting what I wanted. I wanted this to happen. I just needed to acknowledge that and let go. And as I did that, I've now sort of settled, and I'm still happy to challenge the system and what I see as an inadequate system, but I'm much calmer because it wasn't helping me to have strong emotion coursing through me.
Sure. So you had to kind of resolve something.
Yeah, I did. I had to go through my own process, which involved a number of different things that I do, but I settled into some acceptance that this was something I couldn't change. I could do a number of things. I emailed, I contacted media, all those things, but at the end of the day, it hasn't changed the outcome. We're still waiting.
Okay. And do you expect to be waiting for some time yet, or is there some hope that things will start to move?
Well, my local MP, I met with them on Friday, and that was a really helpful meeting.
Good.
And they are looking into it, but I have no idea. I have no idea whether this person who's now become a friend, this family that I now feel a lot of love and an interest in, I have no idea whether they'll come. We've worked together at every stage of the process. Last weekend we said, is this something you still want, or would you like me to help you find somewhere else? And they said, no, we want to wait a bit longer and see if we can come to you. So we're just tracking together and talking, really.
So you've been keeping in touch all the way along?
Oh yeah, we text most days and send photographs, and so they know a lot of. It's like the old-fashioned pen pal thing, really.
Oh, great. So that friendship, really.
Yeah, and I think whatever happens, there's a connection, because they're so grateful that I've done everything I can to help provide a place of refuge for them. But at the moment, that hasn't been successful.
Okay. And did a meeting with the MP, I think you said, was helpful? Is that because there's some new ways of trying to take this forward?
I think it helped me to pass on information that hadn't got through to him, and he was able to give me information that I hadn't actually got. And I think I had been a little bit negative about them because I hadn't had that relationship. But when I met him, like often when you meet someone and talk with them, it changed my perspective. Yeah. So I was grateful.
It often changes everything, doesn't it?
And for me, that was really, and that was one piece of advice I'd give to people. Yes. If you're struggling, get a face-to-face with your MP and have a conversation rather than just be cross and grumpy, because that isn't working.
That's really helpful, Ro. Is there any other advice you'd kind of add in there at all to people who are wanting to get involved, either at an early stage or later on, and feeling the frustration that you felt?
I think if you want to get involved, I think it would be helpful to talk to someone who's been through the process and realise it might not be as quick as you think it will be, and that there are some things that don't work and some things that might, so have the conversation. And if you're in the middle of the process, take care of yourself, resource yourself, because when people come, they will need support to engage with services. And if you're exhausted, you probably won't be the best place to support them. So self-care, really important, I think, for sponsors.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much. Might come back to you, or you may join in with the conversation as it
drink
develops.
now, dry mouth after all that.
Have a drink, relax. I'm going to turn now to talk to Matt, who's sitting next to Ro. Matt, you're a part of this community. You live fairly nearby. And you've got involved too in seeking to respond and I think help others to respond to this. Do you want to say a little bit about what's been going on for you and how you've got involved?
Yeah, I think in a way you almost summarised what Eero said about people needing to look after themselves and be resourced and supported. And I think that's been the main thing on my mind. So I've been, like lots of people, following the developments in Ukraine since they started. It's been really on my mind and thinking about it lots and sort of keeping me awake at night. As it has for a lot of people I know. And the thing that's been sort of bugging me or going around my head is what are we going to do locally about this when people can come in as refugees, when that's possible and that's now starting to become possible, what will the response be like? Will it be a warm response? Will it be a generous response? And will it be a response that is resourced so that those that are doing the hosting can keep on hosting? Because that's going to take a lot out of people, isn't it? And be hard work. So are we ready, I guess, is the thing in my mind. And my journey sort of started when I sort of moved on from just the thinking about it and it going around my head, and if I'm honest, getting a bit sort of frustrated and cross about it, that feeling that nothing's happening. I wasn't really having conversations with the people about the response locally and are we ready? And I was starting to maybe wonder if people really cared or were hoping to do something. So, like I say, it changed when I then started making a little bit of noise and just asking around. And that turned into me putting out a post on social media saying, hey, would anyone like to come chat about what the response might be? And I was hoping to get maybe 6, 7 people together. We planned to meet here at church in the meeting place. The meeting place, as you know, happens every week. It's coffee with the intention of meeting people. So that was a great forum. We were invited to hold our first who's interested kind of meeting here. And I was just getting a few chairs out in the sort of small space behind me. Like I say, 6, 7, 8. Peter was there helping me put some chairs out. He said, well, I think maybe there's a few more people coming than that. So we got out 10 or 11, 12 chairs. And I looked out the window at 10 o'clock and there was this queue extending at the back of church out into the Co-op car park. And we had well over 100 people turn up wanting to just talk and find out, are we ready? What's the response? How can we help? It was amazing. It was like a Hollywood movie. When you sort of see the house party that gets thrown and everyone's like queuing down the street to get into a house party. It wasn't a house party, but it was just as exciting. It was brilliant.
It must have been a really heartening
response
for you.
Oh, it was amazing.
So many people
and to ultimately see that I wasn't the only one feeling frustrated and wanting to do something, that actually there's a whole community of people there. Loads of us all wanting to just find out, even start thinking about what can we do to be ready. And that's what my journey has been about so far, really. It's about being prepared, being ready, so that when people do start arriving and when hosts are then needing to host, that there's a network, that people are connected. Because I think if we're connected and we can communicate and we can support each other, then we're 90% of the way there, and we can do that.
I remember you asking the question on that morning, how many of you are looking to receive refugees into your home, and a good third. And towards a half, our hands went up. It was just amazing. Because there were lots of people there also looking to support in other ways too, which I know from what you said to me before, but that's all important, isn't it? That homes that are open, but also all kinds of other supports that can be put in place. I gather you've set up a website. In fact, I know, not a website, a Facebook page. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so what became apparent on that day really was just that need for ongoing conversation and really to decentralise. I could see in that moment that because I made a bit of noise, I could easily be the person that people came to facilitate a conversation.
Yes.
And I didn't want that. I'm very busy and I'm not very good at it either. So what I really wanted to do was sort of set up a forum and just let people communicate and connect with themselves. And I think that sort of approach is really helpful, and Facebook is great for that. It's probably the weapon of choice really in terms of just facilitating conversation.
Yeah.
Not everyone enjoys Facebook, but if we can sort of get over that, then it's a really good way to have group chat for learning information to be stored and built upon and sort of not lost in the ether, if you like.
Yeah.
So there is a Facebook group. It's called Buckham Ukrainian Refugee Support or something like that. But using those words because obviously made it very searchable so that anyone looking for the group or looking for support who doesn't know that the group is there will then find it very easily. So it's called all the obvious things.
So Buckham Ukrainian Refugee Support.
More or less, that's more
That's
or less
what I've got written down here. So I reckon that's right, yes. So, and that's Facebook. And are you getting quite a lot of traffic there, a lot of interest on the site? Brilliant.
Got over 150 people active in that group.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking again about how to set up the system, if you like, the gameplay for the group so that it is decentralized and it manages itself. So the way we've done that is to have key contacts. So if someone has a particular area of interest, if they know something about education or they've got a real heart for that, or about sort of the legal status of refugees and things like that, they can nominate themselves to be a key contact. And those are in a pinned post at the top of the group so that you know where to go to, and there's people that sort of acquire that knowledge and there's a real specialist interest.
Yeah.
So key contacts is a way that we've sort of organised the group, if you like. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is I made it unashamedly Buckham focused.
Right.
Just because I've seen with Facebook groups and things like recycling groups that it just becomes a huge beast and gets overwhelming. So I've wanted to have a really local focus. There's a great group in Leatherhead as well. There's I think a group in Cobham, there's a group in Dorking. So that really sort of micro focus is helpful so that the conversation, the chit chat, the remit doesn't just grow and then become unwieldy, overwhelming, and then people stop engaging with it.
That makes a lot of sense,
So that's the plan.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I'd maybe just draw you on is we've set up here an opportunity on a Saturday morning for Ukrainians and their hosts to come along and get some coffee at the meeting place. Do you want to say a tiny bit about that?
Yeah, so what's nice is that that first meeting that you mentioned, where people turned up and said, I want to help, I want to be involved, that happened at the meeting place. Quickly exploded into the space head at a scramble. But the meeting place happens every Saturday, and it's for people intentionally to meet other people, have coffee, and get to know people. So that's a great forum, and the meeting place very kindly sort of let us muscle in on that. We have a Ukrainian table in the space, denoted with a flag.
Great.
And that is a forum where word will get around, has already got around, that that's a welcome space for both Ukrainians to meet fellow Ukrainians and for hosts to meet fellow hosts, because Ukrainians will be the best support group for each other, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
They can speak Ukrainian far better than we can, and only they will really understand what they've been through and be able to relate and connect. And equally for hosts, there's a lot of sharing that I think can be done, and sort of journeys that you've been on that are worth sharing. So it's for hosts and Ukrainians. It's every Saturday at 10 o'clock. And it's a nice space, and it kind of got real this week. You were there this Saturday. We had Ukrainian families turn up. We didn't know who they were when they walked through the door. We got to know them over coffee and cake. Some of them were traumatized. They all had their own stories, and it's really exciting to see that space is becoming sort of active and used. And what's interesting is that up until now, is that space has been there for the last few weeks, but we've not really had any visitors yet. It's only this week it got real, and a lot of this is about being prepared and being ready. So you're there when people need it, rather than the reverse of that, which is to wait till you see the need passing you by and think to yourself, I could have done something about that. So it's about being ready.
I think it's going to be a really important space actually in the weeks ahead.
So.
And it's fantastic.
And the final thing I want to say, I guess, about that and about the Facebook group is we don't know what all the needs are, but what I've seen is there's a massive groundswell of desire for people to help and to be generous, and that's fantastic, and that's what we need. So the Facebook group, and also connecting with things like the meeting place, are a chance to then hear about bespoke and individual needs as they arise, so that then those specific needs can be met.
Brilliant.
People have asked, I've got kids' toys, I don't want to be storing kids' toys in my garage ready for if someone might need
Yes.
that age of kids' toys, etc., etc. So that's not so helpful. But I think relationship and being plugged in and connected is then how we hear about actual need and can do things to meet the actual need.
Brilliant. Thanks, Matt, so much. Okay, I'm going to turn now to Corrie and David, who are also with us. Corrie and David, you have opened your home to a refugee who is now with you. Is it okay to use her first name, Tamara, who's with you? And but before we talk about that, you have some history in Ukraine too, don't you? You lived and worked there some years ago. So maybe say something about that. David, how long ago was that? And
so my work took us to Ukraine around about 2002. We were there for 3 years, living in Kiev, obviously in the expat community, but also getting to know local people as well, including Tamara. We got to know, she did some babysitting for us and some other work while we were there. So that's we had this previous contact with her. But yeah, we really enjoyed living in Ukraine, travelling around the country a bit, and particularly at that time, not a place people travelled to terribly much. So it was an exciting time for us.
yeah, and you've kept in touch with Tamara over the years, have you, since you first met her?
Yeah, she's visited us in the UK before.
Okay, yeah.
Though we hadn't been in particularly close contact over the last few years, but obviously our mind turned to her when the events started recently.
Yeah. So how did Tamara come to be with you? And maybe you could describe some of her journey, perhaps, Corrie.
Yeah, so as you said, we got in contact with her on Facebook and started to air the possibility of whether she wanted to come. It was actually incredibly difficult for her to even think about that decision about leaving. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? You know, how can you even start to have those thoughts about what that's like, and the fear that goes with that. And at first that was quite overwhelming for her.
Sure.
And she was trying to come to us to say, sort of, what should we do? And we needed to be really clear, we can't tell you that. That's something you need to think through, because only you will know the pros and cons.
Yeah.
But we just want you to know that you're very welcome if you choose to. And I suggested she went and talked to some people who she trusted to give her advice. And she went to her priest.
Wow.
And her priest said, go. And he said, I give you my blessing. Go. And that felt like the critical point at which she then had the courage to move.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy even getting out of Kiev at that point. She lives on the South Bank, and there was the bridges were down, weren't they? And so just getting a train out was really difficult. It took a little bit of working through options. And she initially went to Lviv, stayed there for a few days. I was quite worried about her journey and then whether she'd get safely over the border. We've heard awful stories of things going at the border. But thankfully she went through as a foot passenger, and it took her about 5 hours, she said, didn't it? Whereas people in cars have queued for days.
Yeah.
But in comparison, at least it was a relatively straightforward journey for her. And when she arrived in Poland, which is where she's going, she was really warmly received. She stayed in 2 different host families who showed her real compassion, generosity, and really took good care of her. So that was lovely. The process took longer than we had hoped. And we were in a different scenario from you guys, but from the beginning we had hoped it maybe would take a week. But actually it was about 3 weeks from first getting the application in until when she managed to get a flight and came out to us. But of course our situation is very different in that we already know each other.
Yes.
She had an international passport already. All the pieces were in place for make it quite a straightforward thing compared to many different other people's situations.
Yeah.
And it was interesting as well in terms of that reception process, the contact we've had with the local council as well, which has been pretty positive, hasn't it? You have to go through the police checks and so on and so forth. But they were very good in that they came to us to go through that process. The explanation of the support that would be available to Tamara once she was set up, about setting up bank account and so on and so forth. We were quite impressed.
Does it feel quite thorough, the checking process?
Yeah, probably more thorough than you think
Than you
possibly
anticipate.
necessary.
Well, it's good maybe for people to hear that, that actually that this is taken seriously and...
Very much so, not just about checking us, but checking that the house was suitable and safe. But as I say, we were initially worried that it'd be quite bureaucratic and frustrating, but in fact they made the process as easy as possible.
No, that's good. That's really good to hear, a very positive story. Do you think that it was the relationship you already had with Tamara that was the key factor for her being able to come so relatively quickly and successfully?
It helped. It definitely helped that we could get information quickly. It was we were relatively early on in the process, I think. So,
And how is she doing?
Well, unfortunately, she contracted COVID very soon after arrival, or possibly even before arrival.
Yeah.
Which obviously hasn't made it an ideal way to settle in. And it's clear that some anxiety remains, which is perfectly understandable, obviously, and an understanding of the kind of huge step that she's having to make at the moment. But I think step by step she's meeting new people. We've had a lot of support from our church small group, not just in supporting us and sort of preparing for her arrival, but also having a few things ready for her arrival, just to welcome her into the country, into the community, and I think that was a positive thing for her.
Absolutely.
And we've got kind of plans in terms of finding places where she will be kind of occupied, feel valued, and then start thinking about what next steps are, maybe work or how she can contribute, because she wants to contribute.
Absolutely.
And be a part of the community as well.
I was talking to one of the families that came along to the coffee morning at 10 o'clock, and it just reminded me straight away. So up to now, it's hearing about Ukrainians but not, a real flesh and blood person, as it were, sitting and having a coffee and hearing about the person's occupation and how it's been for them, but also aspirations and hopes to find some work and so on. It just kind of made a difference, really. Yeah. Is there anything you might want to say to a family who are expecting to receive someone in terms of preparation, any kind of advice about the support they might need?
I think we made a conscious effort before. It was good. It was helpful that we had that extra time. I think if she'd come in a week, we would have been as prepared. So maybe God knows what he's about.
Sure.
But we certainly used that time to connect, to sort of draw on our friends and family and church support, and encourage people to think about what things they might be able to do to support. And of course, for some people, the answer is, well, nothing, and that's fine. Some people say, I had a friend in Argentina who just sent a card that said, I'm really glad you're here and you're safe. And what is that? That's lovely, isn't it? But other people go, should I go to this group? Maybe she'd like to come along to that. So just giving people the opportunity to think about perhaps where they might be able to help.
Yes.
That's been lovely. And when she arrived, there was all this post for her from people just welcoming her. And it was lovely. Really nice.
All of that adds up, doesn't it?
It
and
does.
it's all needed, because you actually can't do this on your own as a family. So all those other forms of support.
That's right.
And it's then responding as a whole community with all the resources that we can bring. Brilliant.
But just hearing about the kind of response that Matt got was encouraging.
Fantastic.
And you kind of immediately knew that if there were any issues, there were people out there who were wanting to help. And it's not something you're just doing on your own. You've got that backup around you all the time.
That's really, really good. Well, we're kind of coming to a close, but I wonder if there's anything else any of you would like to say, just before we close off. Anything that hasn't been said that could be said?
I think for me, whatever the outcome, I think I've been changed, and this family that I've connected with have been changed because there's been the relationship that's been built.
Yeah.
And I think I began to let go of the outcome a couple of weeks ago because I don't know what's going to happen in the end. But what I do know is that there is a connection there, and in a very difficult situation, they have felt wanted, cared for, supported, and shocked, I think, that someone who they didn't know was reaching out in that way.
Yes.
I have definitely been changed by my relationship with them. It's been a mutual thing for us all. So whatever happens, it's been a good thing.
Thanks, Ro. Thank you very much. Yeah. Anything else, guys, before we come to a close?
I found it interesting talking to Tamara, and was quite kind of challenged to test my own assumptions about what Ukrainians would be thinking about the situation as well. Because we kind of, although we get a lot of news, it's presented fairly black and white in terms of what's happening. But to get a different perspective that might challenge my views on what Ukrainians are thinking about what's going on, about the political situation, about their own experiences. It was very interesting. So I think one message I would say, if you're thinking about hosting Ukrainians or you just get to know them, don't make any assumptions about what their experiences are or what they think about the situation is. Get to know them and understand them that way rather than placing our own views upon them.
That's really good to hear, really helpful.
I've got to say so as well, haven't they? Because everyone else has said something.
Yes, I think you should.
I think join the Facebook group. Yes. Because then as needs become apparent through relationship, as we don't want to make assumptions about what help is needed, but as real need sort of comes to the fore, then there's a great chance through the Facebook group to jump in on that need and offer something. So,
great. Thanks very much.
See you all on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's Facebook, but it's a really good platform.
Okay, so we've come to the end of what's been a really, really good conversation, and join the Facebook group. Remember that here at the meeting place, which is at Bookham Baptist Church in Lower Road, 10 o'clock on a Saturday, there's an opportunity to come and get a coffee. That opportunity is always here, but we've got a Ukrainian table marked by the flag and a space there where people can make connection with one another and begin to help and support one another. So do come along. Maybe just also mention that the meeting place also has a language hub, which is poised and ready to be of help for people who are trained in English as a foreign language, to help support those who want to develop their language as well, develop English. So lots going on, lots more resources that we haven't been able to talk about, but join the Facebook group and all those resources can come together. So thanks very much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next time.